Welcome to Talk Purpose and Truth, shifting you into higher consciousness. A show that elevates, uplifts, and encourages listeners to grow, heal, awaken, and evolve. Eden and Kim include bold topics, interviews with inspiring guests, experts, and celebrities, intuitive readings, channeled messages, mental health awareness, and hot topics to expand your awareness. Tune in for unprecedented truth, authenticity, on-purpose discussions, and magic.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Talk Purpose and Truth podcast. It's Kim and Eden. Hello, Eden.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Kim. Thank you for listening to our this new episode of ours.
Yes. Happy Valentine's.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And Valentine's can be, it sounds so cheesy, but Valentine's can be galentines, and you can be single and have a good Valentine's with your friends too. I guess you should be equal, and I'll say guy-entine.
I was thinking that. I was just thinking, how can that go? A guy-entines? That sounded so dumb, but yeah, it works.
Well, it's all cheesy anyway, so who cares? But we decided, we had Joe Whitcomb on our podcast back. We were talking about what's going on and still going on in the Ukraine. And he specializes in relationships. He does therapy related to relationships and relationships after experiencing trauma. And we thought that would be great to have him back on Time for Valentine's, all about relationships. So welcome back, Joe.
Great to be back. Thank you. It's been a while. Great to see you guys again.
Yeah.
Where are you zooming in?
I am, I'm actually in Tenerife, Canary Islands, of Spain. So I'm just right off the West African continent there, off of the Western Sahara right now. I'm spending my winter here until spring.
Nice.
And then I'll be in Corsica, France. So just island hopping right now.
What a life.
I know. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a benefit of being like a digital nomad and doing telehealth. You can live and work, and I can work right on the beach and do this. So it's awesome.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about what you do and how you found your calling and what you focus on the most now.
Well, my big D discovery was in doing trauma-informed relationship psychotherapy about 30 years ago, using an attachment form-based, trauma-informed based, emotionally focused couple therapy, along with about 15 other modalities. And then there's imagotherapy and PACT and other. And one of the big things that I definitely work with, especially working with trauma, is anything that has to do with the somatic experience, the neuroscience, the body keeps a score type work, because that's almost necessary to be when you're working with trauma, especially in a dyadic type of relationship type of therapy.
Yeah. I have a question that just popped in my head. Do you feel that it's sometimes better to avoid things that are triggers when someone's experienced trauma, or do you feel like people should face their triggers?
I absolutely. You have to face the dragons and be able to name and tame those dragons, because otherwise it's like whack-a-mole. It's fun for the first 5 minutes, but then after it's exhausting, and so everybody gets so when you're kind of walking on eggshells with everybody, right? So I think it's really super important that we learn to own and take charge of our wounds, our trauma, right? In a way, it hurts, right? So, but facing it is one of the most important things that we can do to slay the dragons, right? And when I'm doing it with couples, right, as a dyad, we're able to help the couple learn how to come alongside each other and face the dragon together and work beyond the trauma loops and the trauma injury that keeps reenacting itself as a vicious cycle, right? So we got to break the cycle up, right? And help them to learn how to engage in a safe way, so that they both are not, because they get triggered, right? So it's sort of like he gets triggered and then she gets triggered, and now you're in this whole sort of reactive dance. And so that's the big part of the EFT model, right? The cycle, understanding the negative dance and stuff.
Yeah. And I just came up with some example, just came up. So I'm just going to say it, of what you're talking about, like the getting triggered. It could be as simple as like the wife is doing the laundry for the husband, and she's so triggered by it because she doesn't want to be doing his laundry, but there's something deeper. And then he gets mad at her because she's not doing it right, or she's taking too long to do it. And he's coming from something else that happened that he has not healed yet. They're not really mad at each other, for the laundry.
Right.
They get triggered, and that they pick on each other for the smallest things. Yeah.
Right. So these triggers sort of echo back some old attachment injury, right?
Yeah.
Where maybe for her, growing up as a parentified child, taking care of mom and dad and everybody's emotions, and then maybe being the oldest, having to be the caretaker for everybody else, and sort of a very intrusive parent who's more critical, she's going to be very sensitive, right? To any type of like feeling, and she's going to totally feel her distress and anxiety and her distancing, which would probably trigger whatever's going on in his abandonment trauma, right? So now you got this pursue, withdraw sort of cycle. So getting him to stop that dance.
Yeah. And it is something, once you do this type of work, everything could be so much more peaceful. And the love is felt. You can actually feel the love. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that relationship sort of, through this hard-won confidence now and resiliency, can kind of grow through some of the pain points that used to exist that would sort of stop them or block them, right? So they can move beyond, the cycle itself into, better caretaking behavior or caring behaviors and stuff like that. So,
yeah,
I love the work. A lot of people asked me why I had gone to Ukraine. That was my other passion. As I've been doing research and development for trauma-informed mixed reality, VR, AR, for the metaverse. So that was sort of development. About 10 years ago, I found this hole in the universe called trauma-informed VR, and there was nothing going on. And I thought, well, we got to distill this huge ocean of like trauma-informed content into a drop called VR goggles, right? So that's one of the reasons we went there. We're still working on the project, but it's sort of on hold because everybody in Ukraine's been sort of displaced and around Europe. But keep those guys in your prayers. It's still coming down pretty intense. It's almost been a year, guys. It's almost been a year.
Wow.
Next month.
Wow.
That's a lot of trauma to speak of. Some of the things that we wanted to talk to you about, you are a very good writer. So we took some of your writings, articles, posts, and kept some of the ones that were compelling for our show. And so I'll start with this one. So you wrote, when I look around the world and I see the intense change and tragedy, pain, conflict, it all seems to be created by us humans. We are a funny breed, and most of us have never been formally taught how to do relationships. And the first relationship we never learned how to do is the relationship to ourselves. So how could we possibly really know how to do relationships with others? So can you talk about this a bit more, and how can we as humans learn to do relationships with ourselves? And Eden and I talk about that a lot, like how, you find truth and love and acceptance of yourself, it ends up making everything else possible.
Yeah. Well, one of the first things a lot of kids, as kids, that we lost, right, was that sense of safety and security in the world, right? So there was just, so our world got really tight and constricted, and we forgot to learn how to play and have fun, right? Because that's the first thing we forget to do, is to get our nervous systems to regulate again, is through play and through putting ourselves into to experience these things, but also the play in the context of relationship, right? And that play can also be like you guys are talking about in one of your episodes that I was listening to, but also like, you know, dating yourself, right? Going out and dating and finding out what you really love, right? Like I went single for, you know, I dated a lot, but it was more like more about dating being a practice of getting to know me, right?
Mhm.
What do I want? What do I not want? What can I live with? What can I not live with? What can I live without? What can I, really getting honest with, and 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 sitting in the fire of your own pain, right? And uncertainty, right? And doing the work. But you know, I think knowing ourselves, um, I have a bias. My bias is that we're like born, created, you know, wired for love, connection, a sense of belonging. We learn the relationships through our incompetent giant relationships, right? So we learned them that way. And then we have to then we got wounded by that, right? So all the trauma or abuse or neglect, whatever was happening, that was the wounding, right? So where we're wounded relation, this is kind of a Harville Hendricks statement. He always says this all the time, but where we're wounded relationship is where we need to be healed, but we get healed in the context of relationship. So they kind of look at the learning ourselves, not just on an island, but in the context of a relationship being the crucible, the mirror, right? So
yeah, we tend to forget that it is like a mirror, but people don't want to admit that and blame, you know.
yeah. Well, because a couple of things that's really hard for us to really accept about relationships is that, I mean, we got to roll up our sleeves in the beginning, because you got to work through some pain, uncertainty, and be willing to develop some of that. I mean, obviously, if it's abuse or, you know, abusive stuff, I mean, the big stuff, but there's just day-to-day stuff that we have to learn to tolerate and accept, right? Like, I'm charmingly messy, you know. What are you going to do about that? You know?
Yeah, because you know something like that can or may not be a deal breaker for someone else.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Okay, you also wrote, relationship is at the heart of everything. We are in relationship to everything and everyone. We might become an advanced mediator, but experience the same habitual patterns in relationship. Taking your relationship challenges to the yoga mat, an island, or into nature is fine, but it will only take you so far. And that alone reminds me of like The Bachelor, how, you know, when they're in the fantasy of the relationship, and then when they come into reality, most of them break up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then I'll continue. It says, for me, sometime the path and road I was on took me to circus, a ghost town, a dead end, a left or right turn. I ended up in a foreign country and a distant land full of unexpected conundrums, which was exactly the perfect blessing and just the right gift. A wild ride back home into my heart in gratitude. The big D, which is quote unquote discovery, was to really heal your relationship issues. You must do so in relationship. Ergo, wounded or broken in relationship, we can only heal in the context of relationship. Why is this so important, and how can it be life changing for us?
That was a great question you asked.
Can you answer it, please?
Sure. Well, when we look at relationship, like if I'm getting into a relationship just to be happy, right?
Mm,
I'm gonna fail. But if I'm going into this relationship to grow, right, with my intention, right, to grow the relationship, right, to know myself, right, and it's hard to see the picture when we're in the frame, so that's mirroring me back. And so the idea, I think, going back to like knowing, having a healing ourselves in the relationship is, can we heal outside the context of a relationship? Yeah, we can, to a limit, right?
mm-hmm.
I mean, I can be on a deserted island and meditate every day and deal with all my interpersonal, drama and trauma, right? But then I have to go back to society, right? My
Mm-hmm.
relationship with society now, I'm having to deal with all the stuff that was wounded between us, right? That space between. Now there's the three people, right? You, me, and we. So now the we is part of what, if that's the part that keeps, because we keep reiterating or reenacting whatever that we, where the we got broken, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Where the fracture
Right.
occurred, right? So now I could have healed that myself, but man, I'm dealing with someone else that hasn't dealt with healing their wound.
Mm-hmm.
Now what are you gonna do? Right?
Yeah. So are you then saying that when somebody when a couple needs to do work on their relationship, it's best to stay in the relationship to heal it, rather than split and do their work on their own and never go back to each other, because then they'll probably repeat it.
Sometimes, I like to say most of the times, but that would be the hope most of the time.
Yeah.
But sometimes no, right? If there's abuse, there's trauma, there's
Okay.
there's the big three threats, then you got to separate and go do a lot of inner work on your person.
Thank you for listening to Talk Purpose and Truth podcast. Find out more at talkpurposeandtruth.com. And follow us at Talk Purpose Truth on Instagram and Facebook.